Have you ever run into someone who once betrayed you, someone you never expected to see again? It can stir up a whirlwind of emotions. The hurt, the disappointment, all the memories you thought you'd buried come rushing back. But it also makes you pause and realize just how far you've come since then. If it happened to you, how would you feel? What would your reaction be? It happened to me recently, and I was completely unprepared. Here's my story. The scent of wet pavement lingered in the air like a memory. That in-between smell, where the world feels paused, hesitating between storm and sun. I liked days like that. They made it easier to sit unnoticed in the corner of a cafe with my book and pretend time hadn't passed quite so quickly. It was a Tuesday. Tuesdays had become my favorite days, mostly because they didn't ask much of me. My office hours were light. The phone rarely rang, and the cafe on 9th always had a seat by the window. That's where I sat, nursing a lukewarm cappuccino, flipping through a copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God, for the 4th time, when the door chimed behind me. And I felt him before I saw him. Funny, how some memories aren't just tucked away in the mind, they live in your bones. They rise, when triggered by a scent, a sound, the scrape of a shoe on tile. My body knew him, before my eyes confirmed it. I didn't look up right away. I turned the page, even though I hadn't read the last paragraph. But I could feel it in the shift of the air, in the sudden heaviness of the room. And then, a voice. A greeting to the barista, low and familiar. I looked up. His back was to me, broad still, but softened by time. He wore a dark gray coat, slightly rumpled, the collar turned up the way he always used to. I remembered that coat. I'd bought it for him the winter before everything fell apart. He turned. And in that quiet flash of a second, my chest tightened. Ethan. It had been 7 years since I last saw him. 7 years since the night he told me he was confused, and needed space, and 2 weeks later, moved in with the woman he said was just a friend. 7 years is long enough to build a new life. Long enough to say you've healed. And most days, I believed I had. But healing and forgetting aren't the same thing. Back then, I thought we were solid. I truly did. Ethan and I had lived together in a small second-floor apartment with crooked floors and sunlit windows. We had a bookshelf that sagged in the middle, and a kitchen faucet that dripped no matter how tight you turned the knob. I called it charming. He called it a rental problem. We had a rhythm. He left early. I stayed up late. He brought home cheap wine. I baked bread on weekends. We laughed more than we argued, until we didn't. The change came quietly. A distracted tone here, a late night there. I'd ask if something was wrong, and he'd say, "Work's been insane." But it was something else. I felt it before I knew it. A coldness in the spaces between us. A vacancy behind his kiss. Then came her. Melissa. A coworker at his firm. I'd met her once at a Christmas party. She wore a red dress and called me sweet. 2 weeks before he left, he started sleeping on the couch. Said he had insomnia. One morning, he didn't come home at all. And when he finally did, he confessed. Not with remorse, but with resignation, like he'd already rewritten the ending and handed me the final page. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he'd said. That line, like a paper cut to the soul. In the months that followed, I unraveled. Quietly. I still went to work. I still answered emails. I still smiled at the neighbors. But inside, I carried the wreckage of the life we built. 1,000 little things reminded me of him, songs, smells, random commercials. It was cruel how the world continued like nothing had happened. People told me I was lucky it happened before marriage. Before children. As if pain had a measuring stick. But grief is not a matter of legality. It's the echo of what you imagined would last. Eventually, I moved to another part of the city. Changed jobs. Bought new mugs. Learned how to sleep on both sides of the bed. My therapist said I was doing well. My mother called it coming into my own. And maybe I was. I grew stronger, wiser, more guarded. I built a life I liked, one that didn't require permission or apology. And then came this Tuesday. He didn't see me until he turned with his drink in hand. We locked eyes. My stomach dropped, but I didn't flinch. I placed my bookmark between the pages and folded the book in my lap. He stood frozen for a moment, then slowly walked toward me. "Clara?" I nodded. "Ethan." He looked like a man who wasn't sure whether to smile or apologize. His eyes studied me, not hungrily, not longingly, but with something that almost looked like guilt. "I didn't expect to see you," he said. "Same. You look good." "I am good." He gave a small, nervous laugh. "Wow. It's been a long time." 7 years, I said, more to myself than him. He shifted awkwardly. "Do you mind if I sit?" I hesitated. But curiosity, that old ghost, beckoned. 5 minutes, I said, gesturing to the empty chair. He sat slowly, like someone entering a church, not sure if he was welcome, but too restless to stay away. The cafe felt quieter somehow. The hum of espresso machines faded behind the pulse of my thoughts. Ethan wrapped both hands around his paper cup and cleared his throat. "I didn't know you still lived around here?" I moved away for a bit. "Came back last year," I said. "Found I missed the quiet." He nodded. "Yeah. I get that." We sat in silence for a few seconds. I studied the man in front of me. He looked older, but not unkind. Lines traced the corners of his mouth. His eyes, once boyish, once my favorite, looked tired in a way I didn't recognize. "I heard you and Melissa," trailed off. He glanced out the window. "Didn't last. 2 years. Then she moved to Seattle." I said nothing. He didn't offer more. "Funny," he said, "how we always think we're running towards something. Turns out, sometimes we're just running away." I didn't respond. I'd already spent enough nights filling in his missing words. I wasn't about to start again. He took a sip of his drink and looked down. "I was a coward. You didn't deserve how I left." I leaned back in my chair, arms folded gently. "You didn't just leave, Ethan. You erased us. You made me feel like I imagined everything we had." He winced, like the truth was a slap. "I know. I didn't want this moment," I added softly. "I spent years hoping I'd never see you again. And now that you're here," I shrugged, "I don't hate you. But I don't miss you either." That landed. His shoulders sagged slightly. "I think about that a lot," he said. "What I threw away." "You didn't throw it away," I said, steady. "You gave it away, to someone else. And that's a choice you made. You don't get to rewrite that part." His eyes met mine, and for the first time in years, I felt the power shift settle on my side. "Do you ever wonder what might have happened if I'd stayed?" I gave him a sad smile. "No. I wonder what might have happened if you'd chosen me. But you didn't. And that makes all the difference." I walked him out of the cafe. It felt strange, standing on the same sidewalk where we used to wait for buses, fingers interlocked. The sky had finally decided to rain, soft drops, barely more than mist. He pulled up his collar, and I remembered again how I'd once loved him. That was the hardest part. The remembering. But love doesn't always vanish. Sometimes it just changes its name. Becomes something quieter. Not affection. Not hatred. Just clarity. He turned to me. I hope you're happy, Clara. I am, I said. And I meant it. Because I no longer needed him to be sorry to move on. He walked away. No dramatic goodbye. No lingering glance. Just the sound of footsteps fading down a damp street. I stood there for a moment. Let the rain find my hair. Let my breath steady. Then I stepped back into the cafe, sat at the same table, and opened my book again. This time, I read the page properly. The day after I saw Ethan again, I took a long walk by the river. It had become a small ritual of mine. When the world felt heavy, I walked until the noise in my head turned into wind. That morning, I brought no headphones, no distractions. Just myself, a thermos of tea, and the sounds of the city stretching awake. There had been a time when I didn't know who I was without him. Now, I barely recognized the woman who had once begged a man to stay. Healing didn't come in grand, cinematic waves. It came in pieces. In learning how to eat dinner alone without feeling abandoned. In saying no without guilt. I watered my plants before I watered other people. It came in the friendships I had poured myself into, slow, sincere ones. The kind that asked how you really were. The kind that showed up. It came in writing again. Words had always saved me. I had a little blog, nothing fancy, where I wrote about quiet things, solitude, late-night thoughts, the ache of being human. I didn't think many people read it, but one day, someone left a comment. This felt like truth. Thank you for writing it. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. That summer, I met someone. Not the lightning bolt kind of love. Not the dizzy, breathless ache I once mistook for destiny. His name was Marcus. He ran the bookstore across from the cafe I frequented. I'd seen him dozens of times, always in worn sweaters and reading glasses perched on his head. One afternoon, we struck up a conversation about poetry. He recommended Mary Oliver. I gave him a dog-eared copy of Adrienne Rich. We started trading books. Then coffee. Then conversations that lasted past closing time. He never rushed me. Never tried to fill the silences. He let them be. One night, we were sitting on a bench near the water, and he said, "You're quiet in a way that makes space for other people." That's rare. I looked at him, really looked, and realized I didn't feel afraid. Not of being hurt. Not of being seen. And for me, that was everything. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, I stopped measuring myself by what I'd lost. I stopped calling the past a failure. I started calling it a teacher. I kept writing. I kept walking by the river. I kept choosing people who chose me back. Ethan never came back into my life. And I was glad for that. Some stories don't need sequels, they just need closure. On my 39th birthday, I hosted a small dinner with the people I loved most. The ones who showed up not out of obligation, but affection. And somewhere between laughter and candlelight, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. There's a quiet joy in realizing that the worst thing that ever happened to you no longer defines you. It shaped me, yes. But so did resilience. So did grace. So did the mornings I woke up and chose myself again, even when it was hard. I no longer looked for my worth in someone else's eyes. I found it in the way I spoke to myself. In the softness I extended to others. In the life I built with my own hands. The cafe on 9th still stands. The river still runs. And every now and then, I pass by that street where I saw him again. But I don't flinch anymore. I smile. Because the woman I became, she's someone I never would have known if he hadn't left. And I love her more than I ever loved him.